Liberals, you expect more dynamics to also play out in this one?
Yes, basically, because if you simply look at the figures on the basis of ACN performance and the AMPP's performance and the CPC performance, then you might be missing the point. But the point also you would understand in the campaigns, it was more of a referendum on the tenure, on the performance of the current president, as against what the opposition party had to offer. And then also, a lot of people, the propaganda machineries and the slogans against the incumbent were much more than it was in 2011. And so that is why you discover that the most populous states like Lagos State, Rivers State, and Kano State, in 2011, these three states naturally, went to PDP, in the presidential election. For Kano, and also at that time, Kano was comfortably, a PDP state. And then Rivers State, if you remember, then there was a very robust, relationship with between the president and the governor of Rivers State, Chibike Amechi. And like I did say here last time, sometimes some of these figures, we all know the last time election validly held in Rivers State was in 1999. But what basically happens in these states is that elections will largely hold, and at the end of the day, figures will be released. That in 2003, if you remember.
But beyond 1993, the courts also did rule on that election, the governorship election, and it stayed.
No, what I'm basically saying is that in 2000, if you go try listen to Donald Duke's interview again, how we rig election. And so if you after listening to that interview, you would basically understand what I'm trying to say. And so in 2003, if you remember, there was a local government in Rivers State that everybody that registered in that local government voted on day of election, and all of them voted for President Olusegun. Then President Olusegun.
I did listen to what he said, but I'm not sure that what he said at that time invalidates when the court eventually rules on a matter.
No, because if you've attended matters at the Election Petition Tribunal, what basically happens, and that is why a lot of people had been calling on INEC at the tribunal to be the one to prove. The onus of proving the validity of election should rest on INEC at the tribunal, because what happens is, when you get to the tribunal, the petitioner is a participant in the process, and the documents needed to invalidate the process are with INEC. You will need this document to invalidate a process that INEC had conducted. And so in some cases, you find yourself juggling between INEC and the tribunal to get some of these documents. Eventually, when they come, it's difficult for you, because some of the witnesses you are going to need are INEC staffs. And no man will conduct election and come to you and tell you this process was flawed with irregularities.
But at the moment, he who alleges still has to prove.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That is why it is difficult. It's an uphill task for a petitioner to prove in most cases. And because of, sometimes also because of the technicalities involved in these cases, go check, most of these cases are not tried on the merit. They are struck out on the basis of technicalities. And so when that happens, it is easy for the layman on the street to say, well, the court had upheld those elections conducted. But
and rightly
looking
so.
at it from the legal perspective,
no, but isn't it right if they say so?
Why not sitting on appeal on a matter that has been decided at the court? That still does not stop you from looking at the legal foundations and the legal technicalities that were used to arrive.
Let me try and understand.
Let me come inside here. Looking at what we had, I'm just trying to form some kind of comparative analysis between what we had in 2011 and what's to expect now, looking at the figures in 2011 from the South region, comprising basically Akwa Ibom State, Bayelsa State, Cross River State, Delta State, Edo State, River State. River State is having a little bit of a tension now at the moment from the reports that we're getting. As a matter of fact, the youths have actually marched to the INEC headquarters there.
Yeah, but that tension is more than
actually torched it. Edo State also, the governor Adams Oshomole spoke with us yesterday saying that the military, he was not happy with the conduct of the military. Delta State, we've not really heard anything from them, as well as Bayelsa and Akwa Ibom State. But in all, what we're getting, the figures from Akwa Ibom State, the total percentage for the total percentage of the voter turnout will come to thereabout, say, 76.2%. You got that? And then for Bayelsa is about 85.6%. For Cross Rivers is 63.2%. In Delta State is 69.4%. In Edo State was 37.5%. In River State was 76.3%, bringing a total of about 67.0% in all. This dynamics that we're looking at, how does the current situation that we've seen in River State, in Edo State, and possibly in Bayelsa State affect the equation that we're looking at?
I think already we've seen the equation change. In 2011, the voter turnout in the Southwest was approximately 32%. Then you had Ogun, had the voter turnout of as low as 28%. Right now we have within the Southwest, based on those results that have been released, a voter turnout of above 50%. Now for the South-South, in 2011, voter turnout average was 67%. Yes, we've been skirmishes, and rightly so. A lot of these things are quite significant. But we don't significantly think that would change the voter turnout rates. And that's because the South-South is really where the president is from. The Southeast as well, in 2011, voter turnout rate averaged 62% then. And we also don't think the voter turnout rate will also significantly be lower. Where we're concerned about is the Northeast and the North Central, especially the Northeast. The Northeast then in 2011 had 5.8 million voters in the Northeast. We're not sure we're going to be getting those kind of figures from the Northeast this time around.
All right, let me quickly, some of the figures that we've gotten in the past hours or so has given us a sense of participation of electorate and of course the game between the politicians and the gladiators. But from what is happening now, do you see any form of democratic process being deepened? And the fact that, look, are we seeing Nigerians more participating more in terms of the figures, the close figures that we have seen, and of course the turnout of voters and how well they participated?
Surely, let's start from here. 2011, we're having this kind of in-depth discussions. Showing you weren't doing as much work on election figures as you are right now. So we've seen a lot of participation, even from you and every of the channel's crew. So that shows us the level, quite a higher level of participation, even from the media perspective. From the electorate perspective, we've seen more interest in what will happen today. We've seen more discussions. We've seen a lot of traction on media, especially from the two leading parties. We've also seen a lot of discussions from the elderly members of the society. So I think in terms of participation, we've come a long way and we've improved. Kudos to everyone that has participated in one way or the other in this election to improve the level of debates and discussions we have when we are about to go into this sort of election. So I think we've really done much better.
All right, I mean, just allow Liberals to come in. But then tell me, Liberals, put this perspective into this conversation about how well electorates have performed and the kind of contest that we have seen between the gladiators. But the fact remains that in 2011, it was a race between about 4 or 5 parties. But this time around, it's 14 parties in the race, the presidential race. But in the real sense of it, from what the figures are telling us, it's perhaps between it's a two-horse race from what we have seen. What does this tell us?
If you're looking at, like I consistently maintain, if you're looking at it from participation and percentage, it is easy for people to say there have been, the participation probably had dropped. But in the actual sense, what actually is happening is that participation had increased. Like I said, I maintain that before now, what you had were situations where party stalwarts would sit down in the comfort of their rooms and allocate figures. And because that was the case, that's why we saw INEC, trying to innovate, create innovations that we ensure that those processes, those manipulations are minimized. And that's why we saw the introduction of card readers also. And we saw everybody want to be part of that process. And then also the introduction of the card readers actually, it's now beginning to show the actual number of voters, actual number of accredited voters, and actual number of voters. And so with that, you're now beginning to have a clear percentage of people who are participating in the process. Unlike situations where somebody sits down in the comfort of his room and begin to allocate figures. And that was why the case of Rivers State, became very interesting. And that's why, of all the party agents that your crew interviewed, the only question they kept asking right from the morning of the exercise was, as soon as they got to the polling booth, where do you have the result sheets? If you don't have the result sheet, we are not going to even, allow you accredit. Because that had been the normal practice. There won't be result sheet. Somebody will sit down somewhere and be writing or cooking the figures while, the people will be participating in the process. At the end of the day, the analysts like this are denied, opportunity of those that actually participated.